All right. Hey, welcome back, Level Up podcast audience. I appreciate you guys tuning in for another episode. Greg is on location, so you're stuck with just me today. I'm Brendan Payne. I'm your co-host, and have got a great guest, Dom Santaniello, who is coming to us from Western Massachusetts. Dom, welcome to the Level Up podcast, man.
Hey, thank you so much for having me out today.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to diving into some of the stuff that you can share with the audience. And you've got a great story for those that may not know you. Maybe just kind of give us a little bit of history. And you're newer into the business, but are making a huge splash. So how did you end up where you're at currently?
Yeah, thanks so much. So, Cliff Note version of my story was pretty much did what my parents and society told me to do growing up. Did well in school, got into a good college, got an engineering degree, got a master's degree, worked for an awesome Fortune 500 energy company, six-figure salary, 401k, pensions, bonus, all the trigger words for success in the corporate world, and found myself extremely unhappy, when everyone else thought, that was the dream. So ended up getting my real estate license 2 years into working that job, doing some part-time deals because my aunt was a broker at the time, and bought my first multifamily property because I wanted to live for free and stay, pay off my student loans. And then that literally just sent me on the journey that we're here today. So fast forward, and I have a business partner in both a real estate brokerage and a fix and flip company. We're doing now on track at least 10 plus deals this year. And then next year, our target is 15, 20 just on the fix and flip. And that's not counting, wholesale contract sales and that sort of stuff. We're also doing the BRRRR strategy and building a rental property portfolio, which is going to hit the 25 unit mark of this year for BRRRR stabilized properties. And the last thing is the real estate brokerage, running in parallel with that. We're actually onboarding our 15th agent today. And both of those businesses have been probably 18 months old at max with branding and everything behind it. So a lot going on, and just excited to share my story of how I, broke out of the corporate mold and was able to, let a six-figure salary go and build a bigger one on the side.
That's awesome. So a couple of things here, and I want to definitely dig into how you made that transition, because I know there's a lot of people right now that maybe somebody in the business as a real estate professional right now who is trying to figure out, like, how do I get out of this job that I don't like anymore? And I think you're going to get some good tips here on how to actually engineer that. But going back to, you were working corporate world and you started doing some deals. Were you doing deals like retail sales, like general brokerage, or you ended up buying a couple of things?
So I was doing everything. I was, running around with buyers, mostly friends and family, buying single family homes and then rental properties. And then actually had the biggest deal that I kind of got by accident that kind of changed my life was meeting, an individual who wanted to retire and sell a rental property. And after building a little bit of rapport and talking, turns out he had, I think 28 units, all paid in cash, and wanted to sell everything. So I ended up pretty much at the time being pretty green in that space and going to local RIA meetups and Facebook groups and that sort of stuff, and was able to produce a legitimate buyer for that. So now I was kind of double siding the deal, if you will. And instead of taking a commission payout on the deal, I took an owner finance property from there. So got a property 100% owner finance, less than 50% of market value, saved the seller money because he would have, paid taxes and all this stuff. So we did a little bit of installment payment strategy there, and ultimately was a win-win-win. And, was able to take that property, go refinance it, pull a ton of cash out, still have a double-digit cap rate, and then, have now a six-figure war chest of capital, to redeploy when, before that had basically scrounged off enough money to buy just owner occupied, FHA duplex. So that was really what started making me think, I was able to put that together just with my math and finance, put it all in the spreadsheet, make it make sense, sell the deal. And when I did that, I was like, heck, I almost made 1 year's salary with the strike of a pen, and it sent me down the rabbit hole with researching and just loving real estate.
That's awesome. So you probably not the most traditional path for your first 2 or 3 deals, but a very effective one, no doubt. And I can imagine, I mean,
Yep.
I left the corporate world too. And once I could see that there was no longer, like, there was something besides going, all right, if I perform well, I'm going to get this cost of living increase, and maybe I've got this bonus potential, and then you're maxed out. Once I realized, like, there's ways you could make half your salary in a deal or two, that was the same thing. So tell us a little bit about, you're in the corporate world, you've done a couple of deals, you've got some, you got family in the business. What did you do to kind of actually get a plan to get out of the business? Because everybody wants to do this, but there's that fear of, is it going to work? How did you overcome that and actually make the jump?
Yeah, so I mean, being an engineer type A kind of person, it was very planned. And like my number one pet peeve, I guess, from like the social media influencers and all this space is just quit your job, jump right in, take action, commit. Like, if I did this without a plan, I would be applying for jobs right now. So it was basically worked backwards and figured out how much do I need monthly coming in to live my lifestyle I want. And basically the tool I used was rental property. So the classic house hack at first, you buy 3.5% down, owner occupy. That second deal, I was 0 down, then positive with basically money from closing it after the refi. And then really was just focused on buying rental properties that would supplement that monthly income. And then obviously with that, it's interesting when you really dive into the numbers, like living off rental property versus W-2 with all just like the taxes taken out and like all those other things. You're able to really make less, but take home more with passive income. And then at the same time, I also had sales goals. So, had the rental properties, had the transactional deals going on every year. I think even working full time, the first year I did like 3, and then every year after that, I was always doing 10 plus deals. So between that and then the passive income, I hit a point where I was kind of losing money holding on to the fixed salary, which is where we are today, because 40 hours a week was committed to that. And then I always call it second shift, get out of work early, and then I'm running around with buyers, or I'm on the computer up late. And then now it's just living in it real time, like with full focus and commitment on that goal, is making it a lot easier. But to truly answer your question, like, you have to define and work backwards to what do you need to actually quit is step one. If you're making 100 grand a year, I mean, that comes out to like 5 grand a month, roughly, like after 401, taxes, insurance, all that stuff. So for easy numbers, I mean, at that time, I was pretty much, in that wheelhouse just on W-2. And I was like, how do I make 5 grand a month? I could easily, if I live in a duplex and can make 5 grand a month, I could live the same life and work for myself. And then I'm like, okay, that's like, and then the next topic we'll talk about is, door count versus net, profit on rental properties is kind of that. So I was looking less at like, I need 50 doors versus I need, net profit per door of $500. And then that made me looking at a little nicer property, which are lower touch and end up being higher yields. So that was kind of like, it's not a secret, just something that takes a long time. So I get the question every day. I mean, people are DMing me or Facebook messaging, calling like, hey, I want to quit my job. What do I make a plan? And then they're like, well, what do I do? And it's like, you need to literally make your plan. And then now I can help you if you say, hey, I need X, Y, or Z, can tell you basically how to do that.
Yeah, that's a cornerstone of success in this business once you're already an agent, or growth for that matter. And it's also the recipe for making that switch, which is just, it's pure being a business person and knowing your numbers. So when we get, if there's a fear that you've got about jumping ship and saying, all right, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make this investment in my business, or I'm going to leave my career and get into 100% commission job. The fear doesn't come from making the move. The fear comes from not understanding what you have to do to be successful. So if you can reverse engineer from, this is what I need to live, And then here's how many deals I have to do, whatever, if it's a retail deal, a wholesale, a fix and flip, I have to do this X amount of deals, and then figure out what are my activities that I got to get up and do every day to make those deals happen. You've got the answer there. Then it's just
Right.
get up and go do the activities. So that's a difference maker from, there's a lot of agents in this industry right now that don't know their numbers and struggle with how to grow. And that's the key right there.
Yeah, and I equate it to, it's almost like, I forget where I recently heard this. It's like going to the gym. I mean, if I ask you how do I get in really good shape, and it's like I could tell you, but what you actually have to do is for 90 days, 120 days, literally every single day do that. And for me, it was like every day I need to cold call X amount of people, right? Because it's all lead gen. Like if you get the leads coming in, you're either going to wholesale it, sell it, make a commission, buy it, make the cash flow or whatever. So to me, right off the rip for years, lead generation has been the number one thing. And even if, like, I always thought if too much stuff lands on my plate or too big a deal, I can leverage my resources and get it done. And like that, the biggest test when I literally didn't, I had 5 sales under my belt and then get a multi-million-dollar transaction, lands on my plate. I was very scared. Like my broker at the time didn't even really do multifamily. Everyone advised against me, taking that risk, because really what could have happened in that deal is that end buyer could have just bought it and then I could have got cut out of the deal because it was something that you couldn't really paper. It was kind of like a rapport handshake thing. So I think I was 24 years old at the time, risked losing out on essentially a 6-figure, income, whether it be through equity or like a real commission. So the safe play would have been, take 5% of 2 million, or the risk play would have been, give me that credit on this house, owner finance it. And then now I get cash flow, refinance and get the ammo. So I mean, really just, yeah. And it's all about taking a little bit of risk in your gut and all that stuff and just taking action. So for me, just like chasing leads consistently, and that's something anyone can do. I mean, if you're working full time, you can either, pay to play, or you can kind of do it with sweat equity and like pick up the phone. But it's just like getting on YouTube, you can figure out how to generate leads in 15 minutes if you just look it up. So it's like same thing as the gym. We can find an amazing workout online, but we all have to go do it. And then that, I think, in my mind and from what I've seen, separates all the people I surround myself with taking action, and then the people that, just want to do it but haven't done it yet.
So I heard a couple of things in here. One, you actually use the word resourceful. You could be resourceful, use your resources if you had a deal that was too big. You just mentioned YouTube. For somebody that is blocked by that limited thinking, limited belief, and it's a limited belief, but let's help them understand, nobody's born with this knowledge. Where did you go to figure out all the stuff that you could do and then start picking things like this makes the most sense? How were you resourceful?
So, I mean, we're all fortunate enough in 2021 to, even as an introvert, you can pretty much have mentors virtually that you don't even talk to, just by podcasts and videos and all that stuff. So for me, my objective was just financial freedom via cash flow. And my avenue to get there was selling real estate, buying real estate, and then just, making lead gen and that sort of stuff. So I mean, really to go anywhere, like if you're a go-getter, I mean, the easiest way for me from the rip was looking up all the local players that were doing essentially what I wanted to do, and I've targeted people that they weren't only real estate agents. They were, maybe they're an agent or a broker, but they're also, a landlord or a property manager. I always like talking to those people because they're business owners. Like it's one thing to be, a real estate agent, and that is like a business, and then become a broker that is a business. But those other businesses have a lot of moving parts as far as like overhead and employees and risk and all that stuff. So I surrounded myself with key market participants that were doing that sort of thing. And, at first was actually working for free for them. So, took on some consulting roles, says, hey, is there anything I can do for, bookkeeping for you, or property management? I would love to organize all your stuff. I'm really good at that. I'm detailed, master of Excel. Like, how can I add value to your business for a little bit of your time? So buying coffees for people, buying, drinks and dinner for people, building a little bit of trust, because you can't expect to go up to someone and just get their time.
Yeah.
So that was like, I always was trying to figure out how can I add value to this person's like life or business very quickly and just get a little piece of like their mind.
Yeah.
So that is free. It just kind of takes, a lot of reaching out and stuff. So like always doing that, and then podcasts every morning, reading every night, YouTube, et cetera, et cetera. And really, I mean, for me, my businesses are literally what I said. It's a brokerage. We capture the transactional deals, fix and flip. We're now making money, flipping houses or flipping contracts, AKA wholesaling. And then we're buying rental properties and holding them. So as far as anything real estate related, those were the three key things that we wanted to focus on. And, you can target any lead gen that you want, and the leads that you get fall in one of those categories: multifamily to buy, multifamily to sell, single family to buy, sell, etc. So that's kind of, we just wanted to have one lead generation machine, and then whatever comes in, be able to chop it up in any of the businesses.
Got it. Love it. So I think probably a traditional path of an agent that ends up maybe where you're at now, the path may look a little different. They come in, they do some deals, they learn the brokerage side of it, and then they have a little bit of extra money, and then they decide, you know what, I'm seeing all these potential deals, I need to take advantage of it. You are going all in early. So,
yeah,
and I would assume, based on what I know up to this point, that's by design. What do you think that shows up as an advantage, whether it's to the consumer or you're growing your brokerage? How does that make sense for you and what you're trying to accomplish big picture versus going in and saying, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to do some deals, raise some capital, play in the investments, build a portfolio, versus saying, I'm going to build all 3-4 of these arms at once?
Yeah, so we're kind of shooting from the hip doing that now, and it seems like it's working out good. And the biggest thing, like in my mind, like we're making a lot of noise advertising, social media, all the little details. Like I'm a detail freak just naturally. So this has been compounding of small details, and now we're at the point where we kind of have something to show for it. So starting at the granular level, like the name, the logo, the social media, all that sort of stuff. And I don't want to get off topic. So just to answer your question of how does all that happen, I think one thing always complements the other. So, being a real estate agent helps you as an investor. Being an investor helps you as an agent, and it just kind of gives you a little bit of diversity. So a great example of someone that's boots on the ground, they want to build up just as an agent and maybe one day be an investor. That was literally me. I must have shown 100 multifamily properties to friends and family before I bought my first one. And that alone, being a real estate agent, getting the showings under my belt was making me a better investor at the time, because I didn't even realize I was walking into properties. I didn't even have the 50 checkbox list I was walking around with as a, type A engineer with my, pencil there anymore. When I got to showing number 100, I'm walking in and I'm looking right at the big CapEx, right at the leases, right at the utilities being separate. And I'm figuring out on my cell phone, is this a good deal? And doing some quick division to get, a percentage and making offers on the spot. So that's why I think it's important. If you're a real estate agent and you want to be an investor, well, being an agent will help you. And then even being an investor, that happens to be an agent, which is kind of like how I describe myself. I'm a real estate, investor, entrepreneur, broker, in kind of that order. But I tell people as their broker, I'm like, listen, I literally negotiate deals for a living, for myself. I have a portfolio that makes money. I was able to do that myself. We're selling your single family home. There's no one better you want in your corner than me, because I actually do it for myself. Yeah. And that was always a key thing I told people. You can hire any agent. They're going to probably have the same photographer as me. They're going to have the same MLS as I do. So literally the description, the same person's probably writing it. And I don't think the description selling your, $1 million home, it's literally me. And it's my advantage. And I tell everyone that, and all of our agents, you guys are agents and investors, and don't think the investor piece doesn't help you, with your residential clients, because it absolutely does. I mean, if you're being successful representing yourself, then you can represent them, versus if you've never done any business or transaction, it's a very hard sell, like in the beginning, to gain that rapport and trust and get like listings, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And that resonates with the clients. You can get by with, somebody's buying a single family home and they're an emotional buyer, and that's what drives the sale. And you can be new and you can open the door and you can get them their disclosure and all that stuff and serve them at a high level. But when you're going in and you're actually looking at multifamily or leases and properties, whether they cash flow, what's the return, all that stuff. If you haven't done it yourself and analyzed it and said, does this work for me? And how do I then peel off the layers to get the investor to say, what are your expectations? How do you want this to perform? And be able to have that conversation, then they'll see through that. And the guy that knows those conversations will get the job every single time.
Yep. No, I totally agree. And, to kind of pivot off that point, I would say one of the things that changed my entire paradigm at first was when I was in that phase of the free consulting and then turned into paid consulting. I got tied up with a property owner, broker, and landlord property manager, basically did everything. And I was able to have an opportunity to clean up. And basically at the time, the pitch was, let me audit your property management operation, see if I can create more efficiencies. Because in my engineering job, I'm efficiency, compliance, and then have a financial piece. That's what I always did. Safety, efficiency, compliance, and then finances were what I did in engineering. So I said, I can take that skill set to your business and see if there's anything I can help with. And right away, being a detail freak and looking at the numbers, I noticed this individual had two separate portfolios. One, a low touch portfolio, low cap rate portfolio, and then a high touch. So the spreadsheets made it seem like the high touch stuff was just blowing the doors off when you're just looking at ROI and cap rate. And even if you factor in depreciation and all that good stuff, the numbers just looked way better. But then when I looked at the receivables, it literally looked completely different. The low touch almost always performed within 5 or 10% of pro forma or just, expectation. The high touch just was just negative or break even the whole time. And that's when I really got big. And, when I was meeting my business partner at the time, I said, the unit count, the door count it's just not the business to be in. That's, if anything, it's just a posturing metric or, a flex or whatever you want to call it. But looking at the low touch stuff, you don't see where you can say, you're saving with less employees. You could basically get away with doing 100 units low touch by yourself, like this guy was, versus 100 high touch needed 2 full-time maintenance guys, someone in the office, those little things. And if you're a business owner, you have a responsibility to know your numbers, like you were saying. And if you start looking at those numbers, you're going to see that you're literally 80-20. You're putting 80% of your time into this and making not even 20% of your profit. And that's where everything changed. And we're literally just looking at net cash flow now, not pro forma.
Yeah, that's a great point. One of the things that I remember probably 2 years in the business when, it wasn't a question anymore of being able to succeed in the business, but now it was okay, what other things am I going to do? What am I going to branch out? Do I want to make investments? Do I want to do other parts of this industry? One of the things that Greg taught me is you have to shift at some point. We're always talking about ROI on investments, return on your investments. It's great. But at some point, as you continue to grow and you scale your business and you want really to start building wealth, you have to start looking at your ROT, which is your return on time, because there's only so much of it. And you can choose that to the time to be, in a bunch of high touch properties, and you feel great because you get to tell everybody how many doors you own. The problem is it doesn't allow you to go do anything else to scale. You're tapped out, stressed out. And, you can go and if cash flow, we know, is king in any market. If it cash flows, who cares what happens on paper with the value ultimately?
Right.
Then you're going to be able to withstand the storms and be able to scale because you can do so much more with your time.
Right. And that you hit it right on the head too, just being conservative. Obviously we're in a high market right now and, things will change at some point. So appreciation isn't even a conversation when we're looking at deals. I'm assuming everything's going down 30% on a spreadsheet and preparing, myself mentally for looking at updated PFSs when that happens. But the true metric is the monthly net cash flow, and just based on like our DCR, like, our debt coverage ratios and things like that, those mean a lot to me right now versus ROI. And even, our commercial banking partners and even private lenders, that's the biggest conversation where we get a lot of praise is, they're even seeing it. They're like, this is an unusual cash flow for, a 2-family, a 3-family, all that stuff. And what we're really doing is just taking, condemned value add properties, making them, I don't want to say class A, but class B plus, because they're not big complexes with gyms and, pools and that sort of things. There's all 2 to 4 units that are in very good areas and getting, market tenants there. And at the whole portfolio level now looking, we could cover debt service and expenses with less than 50% of units paying rent. So in a situation where things change like COVID and all of that, we're literally to this day have not missed one payment through all of COVID-19 scare. And then and our personal stuff too, from having just that business model. And I know a lot of people that we're surrounded by can't make that same claim. And, when you're running at $100 a door or $200 a door, things go really sour quick. And then you have this big debt service to handle. And, long term, we're just looking at that net number. So we're going to slowly and methodically grow the portfolio to a position where, we can pick and choose if we want to work anymore is ultimately the end game. But now we're in the fun stage of getting it there. So
absolutely. Let me unpack a couple of things there for those that are listening and going, man, I love it, but he said a couple of things I might not know what they mean. So he mentioned he's in a good position with the properties if there was a 30% pullback in values, which basically means if there's a shift in the market, the stuff that you're sitting at today, the value today could go down 30%. And while that would suck, and you would look at your PFS, personal financial statement, and there would be a lower value to your assets, the reality is they cash flow. So you would continue on exactly what the financially every month they're doing exactly the same performance, but top line, you look across the board and say, well, we've got a little bit less in value, but you're not selling them. So that's a distinct difference than a lot of the mentality that I see right now, which is, you know what, I got to get this net worth up to this huge number. And the net worth doesn't mean anything because it's all based off of the market value. And then the cash flow, they're spending $200 a month on every door. And once that goes south and your value's gone, well, now you don't have a way out.
Yep. Couldn't have said it better myself. That's literally it. And to someone who doesn't know any of the terminology or the rental business, I explain it like this. You work for a company that's traded and there's a stock. The stock price goes down, but your salary stays the same. That's essentially how I describe what we're doing. Our portfolio value is going to go down. It has to, based on where we are in the market. So we're focused on building that salary or cash flow, if you will, and that's going to power us through the downturn and ultimately, lead us to doubling and tripling in size when that downturn happens. Because right now has been the hardest time that I've seen in 5 years to get deals. We're going direct to seller now on stuff, and we're competing with 4 or 5 people, half, with reputable names, and then the other half that somehow just got in front of the seller and is making it extremely hard to get deals. So that's where all the little details are helping us with, our brand, our social media. We have a commercial now. We're running ads. Our Google reviews are great. And that's for both, the brokerage and the home buyers. So for us, we're just trying to stand out in all things real estate and have a really clean reputation. And that brand is helping us get clients, buyers and sellers for our agents, helping us get accepted offers, especially on multifamilies on the market, even with agents because of the name we have and our rep for being in, the space and closing deals. So us kind of having, a cross brand of being cash as is buyers gives a level of, validation just on the brokerage side. If I write an offer, people know who we are and what we do and that we close a lot of stuff. So they're thinking, hey, if we're getting a Naples offer, then they're probably going to close. And that's been a great residual for our our nonstop consistent, marketing efforts just to get on the map, especially on the broker side, because it's so hard to recruit agents and, sell the dream without basically giving away, all the commission or that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of operating costs, and it's not an extremely lucrative business until you have a huge bench of high producing agents or, a ton of agents at like an unfavorable split. So it's something that we're slowly building on the side, but we're just had to kind of, even to pitch it to anyone, who had to get all the best systems, and that overhead is a lot. So we're kind of just working now on automating that, and then just, recruiting softly as we scale.
Yeah, that's so, I mean, you've recognized something really early in the brokerage side of the business, that you can sell on two things. You can sell on the value, which you're trying to build right now to the agents. And a lot of the things you're doing, I think, really play into that. Or you can sell on price, which is, you just got to pay them 110% every deal that they do. So those are your options on the brokerage. And I'm glad to see, I mean, you've got even the buying side, the cash buyer, to be able to put them in front of you as a potential buyer. That's huge for an agent that's going out and trying to compete with maybe another agent that brings in an offer from OfferPad or Knock or any of these iBuyers that are out there. That's a big value proposition that you create for your agents. I like that.
Yeah, and that's something, honestly, I don't want to make it sound like we intended for that, but it kind of hit us the other day. We had a brand new agent, just got his license. Like, multifamily's on the MLS now. It's the Wild West in our market. Sight unseen, 10 offers before the open house. That's the market. And we had a brand new green agent. First offer he wrote was, for himself, because he kind of likes what we're doing, owner occupied, investing, that whole thing. Ends up getting an accepted offer because the agent recognized he was a Naples agent, saw that we do a ton of multifamily stuff, had actually done a deal with us in the past. We didn't even know this. He was just involved with like a deal that we did like a cash acquisition on, and just had all the faith that if we were behind him and he was buying this property, that he was going to close and it would go smooth. And we got that direct feedback from him, like letting us know, hey, I kind of, this offer made a lot of sense, and we had a lot of confidence in your brand. And I mean, that just meant a lot to us, kind of building this thing up, that people are having, respect and confidence in like the name. And, it definitely didn't happen overnight, but it's on the brokerage level. And I was even intrigued, just kind of researching, you guys before getting on this podcast, on how you're really big on the brokerage side. And we're kind of looking at it now, like, how do we actually scale this thing and make it worth our time? Because if we put the same amount of time into the home buying side, I mean, we're killing it on, the flips and the wholesales and that sort of thing. And it's like, that amount of effort on the brokerage side would not be as lucrative. So we're trying to figure out, how do we keep both moving and, make it worthwhile for everyone.
Yeah, well, you're on the right track for sure. And you've got you've got value at the top of mind. And the crazy thing is with what you're doing, it helps. It's a win all the way around. So if you have if you have good agents that have good opportunities in front of them, that's going to help all areas of the business that you're working on. So, it's just not saying that the 90, 95, 110% shops and stuff, that it's a bad business model. It's just different, and play as well into your big picture. And so I think you guys are, you're positioned with the right model for what you guys are wanting to do. And you are going to have a lot of value for your agents just in the conversations, for sure.
Yeah, appreciate that. And that's, I mean, the biggest thing my partner Luke and I always talk about is how do we provide value to the agents? And that's our sales pitch. And we're kind of looking at our roster of agents, and I would say 80% of them are under 35 years old, have interest in investing, either owning, multifamilies, getting into a flip, wholesaling, or a combination of the three. And then just looking at our, I would say, competitors in the brokerage space. I'm 28 years old. My partner Luke is 27. We're the youngest real estate brokerage. I mean, I haven't really looked into it, but just from all the, reputable shops, by at least close to a decade. And all of those, brokerages are just brokerages. So we have this unique element where, we're kind of played up as, financial freedom, make your own schedule, work for yourself. I mean, obviously working very hard. Like, I mean, we're Monday through Sunday, there's no days off. I mean, if you're an active agent, we all know that we don't have a schedule or anything. We report to the clients who love texting us after business hours, nights and weekends and all that. So trying to just, break the mold of, work 9 to 5 and, save your money versus, we invest our money, we work when we want to work, and we deliver for our clients because we make our own schedules. It's kind of like our, up and comer young niche in the market. And I mean, it's still a case study, but I mean, we went from calling people to now people are calling us. And just this week had 2 agents onboarded, one green, one seasoned, that reached out to us just based on our branding and social media presence, which is very rewarding just based on the grind it's taken to get it up and running.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, great stuff, Dom. I really appreciate you just sharing all this stuff. And there's a ton of good nuggets in there. So if somebody's out there and wants to, whether they're in your area or just, wants to pick your brain on something, what's the best way to try to get a hold of you?
I would definitely say email. On email 24/7. So that would be dom@naples-group.com.
Awesome.
And then basically anything, I mean, on social media, if you find yourself on any, website, Instagram, LinkedIn, any of that, our assistants basically funnel all that directly to me and my partner, Luke. So emails preferred, but if you don't remember that and just go on, naplesgroup.com or Naples Homebuyers, Naples Realty Group, anything Naples, it all funnels to us.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, if you got any in the audience has any buyer seller referrals or deal referrals out in Western Mass, give Dom and his team a call. And please continue to like and subscribe to this podcast and give us reviews. Whether it's a good review, bad review, it's okay. We like to get the feedback, and it continues to give us opportunities to get really, really good up and comers like Dom on the podcast and share the stuff that he's willing to do. And that's one of the biggest themes with our guests is they're all willing to contribute. So again, Dom, thank you very much for being on the podcast, and look forward to seeing what you accomplish over the next few years.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
You bet. We'll talk soon.